Oh yeah, this is on. Do we, by any chance, have a Chance Thomas here? Okay. Everyone ready? Welcome. This is City Council, meeting Tuesday, May 25th, 2021. This is the 7 o'clock regular session of our council. We did have a council meeting tonight, a work session that started at 5. That's usually a 6 o'clock work session, and the public is always invited to that. So tonight we appreciate all those who are in attendance to be here, and we want to welcome all of the city council here and staff. Let's start, Richard, with you, and we'll just we'll give our attendance.
Richard Higginson, Millie Segura-Barr,
Randy Lewis,
Kendall Harris,
Chris Simonson.
Kate Bradshaw.
thank you. And we've asked Chief Ed Beeler if he would lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance.
Would everybody please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance with me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Unless we have a volunteer for a thought or prayer, we will continue with the agenda. With that, we will begin the public comment period. This is a 10-minute time period. We have a little timer here for 2 minutes each for the public to speak. Just give your name and where you live, and we'll turn some time over to you. Anybody from the public that would like to speak?
Hello, my name's Steve Slatter. I live at 1398 East Canyon Creek Drive. So I didn't have so much a comment as a request. As the North Canyon Trailhead is being planned currently, and we've had some discussions about issues, I'd like to get that added to next month's agenda for the work session, if that's possible, so we can have an open discussion about the issues there. That's my request. Fairly simple, and I don't know how we go about doing that, what's required or what's necessary, but that's my question or request.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve. We'll put it in the hands, too, of our administration to see, and our legal team, how we proceed with that.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it, Steve. Appreciate both of you being here. Thank you. Any other folks? Thank you.
My name is David Christensen. I'm at 135 West, 900 South, so just across the street. I'm here to speak about the proposed fiber internet. I have a few concerns about the fiscal liabilities that could put the city under in the long term. I know that the model that Utopia has is, if I remember right, if there's 30% of households uptake, then the taxpayers don't pay anything. If it's lower than that, then the taxpayers are the backstop, is my understanding. My concern is mostly around the timing of this with the rollout of 5G. 5G right now is not significantly faster than 4G on a cell phone. It's in the low end of the technology right now. They're rolling out the mid-range over the next few years. By the time that finishes rolling out, it'll be 900 megabits per second, which is almost as fast as the proposed fiber. And at that point, it's hard to see why a person would pay both a cell phone bill and a fiber internet bill. So my concern is that the city may be getting itself into a long-term obligation while the uptake, the 30% threshold, may only be met the first few years and then fall below that floor fairly early on in the timing of that obligation. So that's a significant concern that I wanted to raise in hopes that that will be thought about and addressed. Because I think that could be a serious liability for the city in the future. Thanks.
Hey, David, tell us what your background is.
I'm an economist.
Okay. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, with that, we'll close the public comment period, and we'll go on to the next item, which is the minutes of the previous meeting held on May 11th. Any corrections or additions by any of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve those minutes.
Thank you.
Second?
Thank you. And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Council reports, and we'll start with you, Kate.
Sure, I have a kind of a oddball report / inquiry. I have been kicking around an idea a little bit with Gary and Francisco about a way to raise awareness of our Trails Master Plan, particularly with those entities that may be able to provide matching grant funds, or private entities that have community investment funds and would be interested in partnering with us in trails projects. And so the idea I've been kicking around is a hosted mountain bike ride on the Mueller Park Trail with different stops to explain where different trails would interconnect, where downhill loops might be, where the Davis County Bonneville Shoreline Trail that they just received a significant grant for would come through Bountiful, so that we could kind of raise some of that excitement with, in particular, the Office of Outdoor Recreation, which is probably where our primary opportunity for a matching grant would come from. So I've been kicking around the date of June 18th to do this ride. I'm hoping to convince Francisco he really needs to spend his Friday off doing this ride with me so that he can explain the Trails Master Plan, and so wanted to raise that as an idea and something that I'm working on, and of course invite any that would like to join in the Sweat Fest up to Elephant Rock and all the way over to North Canyon.
Any other items?
So the reason, it's my fault this was brought up this way.
It's
I'll own it,
always
Kate.
your fault.
Usually it's my fault. Because this is going to take more than a couple hours of staff time, we always bring those items back to council for direction, and this is something we're very happy to help with. I'm especially happy to see Francisco on a mountain bike, but we're very happy as staff to participate. We just kind of need council direction if you support this idea to give us the go-ahead, and then we can get to work with Kate in doing it. We think it's a good idea to help educate some folks and maybe get some matching funds.
Sounds great. Sounds like some really good potential help.
And, you know, I mean, Francisco and I could get some matching Bountiful Lycra
No, we're
for
not.
this fantastic ride that we're
No, we're not.
Could we get training wheels for Francisco just for safety?
Please. Thank you, Chris.
So am I to understand that this is something that you're going to head up and coordinate on that day?
correct.
Sounds fun.
I think part of the reason I feel like having Francisco, and it would invite other members of our Bountiful Trails Advisory Committee to go, would be to help explain all of that work that's been done to think about these interconnections. And Francisco knows the maps, much better than I do. And I think it would be fun for him to wear Lycra on a mountain bike on a ride.
Things are getting weird.
Very fast.
And there'd probably be a minimal expense for some food or some things as we talk through things, but there's budget in that in my budget or in the legislative budget. So any concerns with that, council?
No.
No.
Okay, anything else?
That felt like enough, thank you.
Okay, Chris?
Thank you, Mayor. Yesterday, the Larry H. Miller Group came to the Bountiful Veterans Park for a day of service, and Jason Miller was there. We want to thank Jason for coming. He was here a minute ago, and then he left, but he is supervising and looking over the Veterans Park and is doing a wonderful job. I'm very impressed with him. And so we did have a day of service in preparation for next Monday's Memorial Day celebration, which will happen at the park. While we were there cleaning, a 70-year-old individual rode in on a Honda motorcycle from Fresno, California. He came 2 days just so he could stand in front of Columbia and have his picture taken. And we talked to him about a few minutes, and he said, I've gone all around the Intermountain West. I have never seen anything like this anywhere. And I wanted to have a picture of it. So we appreciate and thank the city and the effort the city's done to let us complete the Bountiful Veterans Park. We will have a celebration on the 31st of May, 11 o'clock at the park, and it's going to be a great celebration. So thank you, Mayor.
Kendall?
Thanks. I don't have really any announcements, but I did want to just follow up with a question. I emailed earlier. I got a call this morning from a resident asking about watering in our city parks and at our city office. So I understand, I know the Parks Director Brock is not here, and so maybe you don't really have the information, but I just wondered if you had, the concern was just about us making sure that we're following regulations in our parks for conserving water.
Yeah, as I recall, the request from Bountiful Irrigation and from the governor's office was no watering between 10 and 6. And there was an exemption for newly planted sod or landscaping, and that would qualify around this building, which we're still trying to establish that sod. And I think you mentioned Fourth North Park, and so we'll look and do whatever we can to come into compliance with that. Or Lloyd, I don't know if you're aware of any of the other timing issues that we have out there.
I would just say that irrigation on some of our parks is pretty important. If you want to have a green park, you need to water it once in a while. Some of our parks have a higher demand than others, like Foss Lewis Park and North Canyon Park. Those are two that are pretty sensitive to a regular watering schedule. Brock is very aware of that. He's very cognizant of that. We do have a lot of timers around the city. It's tough to go and adjust every one of those, but we certainly check those regularly, make sure they're functioning as they should be.
Just hoping that we are being good examples and abiding by the guidelines that our residents are asked to as well.
Foss, if I can, I was with the parks manager of Foss Lewis, and that's an example of a park, and we're all familiar with the issues with the watering there and the soils. Something I didn't know is, you may recall that we used to have a water line that came down for the street, down the hill above, that was a high-pressure water line that broke, and so we moved that around to come in where the parking lot is. Since that time, that's dramatically reduced the pressure at that station, and we don't have good pressure at night or in the morning for that park. The only time we have sufficient pressure is after early morning. So that's an example of a park that if we want it to stay green, we're probably going to have to, bend the rules a little bit. And unfortunately, our parks are a little bit different than someone's lawn. We can't really control who's on them, and so if we let them get too dry, then it kind of does irreparable or takes a long time to repair the damage. So that's why I'm only hedging my bet that we'll do as much as we possibly can, but we don't want to do it at the expense of ruining some of our properties.
I would, if I may,
Please.
sorry.
Please.
Maybe the city takes volunteer applications for people to stop watering their own yards so that the city can water the public spaces so that everybody still has green space to use. I don't want our city parks to die. And I understand there's a water shortage, but those are spaces that all of us use. And I think that watering those is a priority. So, just my opinion. Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, Kendall. Millie?
I have nothing to report this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Just wanted to report back to the council that the Power Commission, and I see that Mr. Alan Johnson is here tonight, the Power Commission participated in the first, it wasn't a real discussion. Alan was laying the groundwork for further discussions of our solar program, our solar policies, I should say. And the Power Commission seemed keen on taking that on as a challenge to see what recommendations they can come up with for the council on folks using their own power first, et cetera. So it was a good meeting for information, and we'll have, I'm sure, lively discussion going forward. So thanks to Alan for that.
Great. Next item, consider approval of expenditures greater than $1,000 paid May 3rd and 10th, 2021. If you haven't seen anything that needs to be corrected, again, I would, or have any questions, I would ask for a motion.
So moved?
Thank you, and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We'll turn the next item over to Chief Beeler. Thanks, Chief. It's good to have you here tonight. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, Mayor and members of the council, for allowing me some time for this agenda item. In 2009, the Bountiful City Police Department began using a computer-aided dispatch or CAD software that was provided by eForce software. At the same time, we began using a different software for our RMS and mobile products, and that company was called FatPot. In the beginning, it was never intended to have two different software providers providing those same services, but that's what happened at that time. In 2018, we left FatPot and began using strictly eForce software. That allows our CAD to be able to talk to our RMS products and mobile products a lot easier. Bountiful Dispatch right now is the only dispatch center in Davis County that does not use a company called Spillman or Motorola Flex. Motorola bought Spillman. We're also one of only a few agencies in Davis County that doesn't use Spillman or Motorola Flex as their RMS and mobile product as well. None of the agencies that we dispatch for use eForce products, or so they're RMS products. RMS is records management. That's how we do our reports. And that makes it sometimes difficult to share data from CAD, so our dispatching, to the end user in their mobile products, because they don't talk together very well. So with some legislative and countywide discussions around physical and or virtual consolidation of dispatch services, it appears now is a time for us to be able to be consistent with our other agencies around the county. Before my appointment to the Chief Ross and Gary were in some lengthy discussions with various people in the county commissioners, and some groups that were put together for that. So that ball had already been rolling before I was appointed to the chief. So in those countywide meetings, which had been occurring well over a year, there's now a commitment by every agency in the county to move to a Motorola Flex. There's great bargaining power when all of us have been able to negotiate with Motorola about the purchase of the product for us, and also the ongoing maintenance costs for the agencies that already use Motorola Spillman right now. The total price for the Bountiful Motorola Flex project is $367,039, $367,039.11. That includes us to go to CAD, RMS, mobile, some interfaces, and our first year maintenance and hardware costs. Of that price, $89,756 of the project cost will be divided amongst the other agencies that we dispatch for based upon the population of each agency. So because the other agencies that we dispatch for will also benefit by the CAD products that we use, we took some of those pricing out and some of the hardware and the interfaces that are going to benefit them as well. That's the $89,000 portion of that. And based upon their populations, they will take care of that particular cost. But the cost for the RMS and the mobile, which does not benefit them, it only benefits us as Bountiful City police officers, that component has been taken out, and so that's where our price is obviously higher. The contract requires that 50% of the cost of the project is due at the signing of the contract with Motorola, and once the contract is signed, there's an estimated 12 to 15 months before we can implement. That's how long it takes them to build the product for us and implement our data and all that sort of stuff. we would be somewhat of the holdup for the rest of the county to be also to make this move. In our meetings with other county partners, it was decided that it would be most beneficial for everybody in the county to be able to move at one particular time into one hosted server and that sort of stuff, which I'll get to in just a minute. But it would be most beneficial for all of us to go at one time, so we're the holdup in that because they have to build our CAD and get our information inserted in some of that. So the cost of the project was budgeted for in next year's budget. We've done a budget amendment to be able to try and make the purchase in this particular year that we're in right now. And Bountiful's current Motorola Flex purchase is part of a larger countywide project. The countywide project will have additional costs that will be due later, and those costs will involve some licensing and shared servers that will also be distributed among the cities based upon their population as well. So this price that we're asking for now is just as it relates to Bountiful and our project here. The greater countywide project will have some money needs associated with that as well that we will, of course, approach you at a later time about that. So staff recommends City Council to approve the purchase of Motorola Flex with 50% due now and the remaining balance due at the completion of the project. And I would be happy to entertain any questions that I hopefully will be able to answer.
Chief, could I ask you a question?
Sure.
On page 37, the 2-year maintenance is $38,000 and a few bucks. Do we know past the 2-year maintenance? Do we have any idea of what the maintenance would be like in the future?
If I remember correctly, they told us that they would hold the maintenance costs at that low level for, I believe it was 5 years, if that sounds right.
Sounds
and then
right.
After that, there will be incremental increases. I don't know what they are. I want to say in the 2% range, but if you remember anything different.
No, they didn't commit after that period of time. I think right now we're paying, do you recall what we're paying maintenance right now?
Yeah, right now we're paying eForce around $80,000 per year. And so our ongoing maintenance costs right now are obviously much lower than what we're paying right now.
Could I ask a second question?
Yeah.
At the bottom of page 37, items that are not included, there are 4 rows of items not included. Do we have an estimate on cost for those items, or do we already have them on stock?
I'm not sure what page 47
Oh, I'm sorry,
looks like for
37.
you as it compares to what I have.
Oh, page 37, Gary, where would that be for the chief?
Are you looking at my?
It's that page.
Yes.
Yes, there, yes, chief, yes.
Is it the last page? Sorry, is it the last page of that?
No, it was that front
It's the
page.
4 bottom items on that same page, Chief.
That front page you held up.
The one you held up,
Oh, gotcha.
yeah.
So the Esri desktop licensing and stuff like that, those are things that we already are currently using with our service right now, so that's not an additional, that they're just saying that they're not including those licensing items in their cost because we already pay that cost with eForce right now.
So we already have those items.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, chief.
Any other questions,
If I could, Mayor.
please?
First of all, I want to express again my support for the idea of Bountiful equipping itself to be able to be its own entity as we virtually consolidate, which is how I hope things go. I'm wondering if there was any movement in the legislature this session on consolidation, whether they're trying to push one direction or the other, or what news there is on that front.
But my understanding is that it's a virtual consolidation is still fine. It has to do with the percentage of calls that are being transferred from dispatch center to dispatch center to reduce that. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm just going off of my memory. When I had our dispatch supervisor provide me some of this information within the last month, and so when we first started collecting the data, I believe that we were transferring around 15%. I think that was before we had one of the other fat pot products. Last 2 years ago, it was, I want to say 7%, so we went from 15%, I believe it was to 7%, and last year was 5%. Our goal is 4%, and I think that's what the legislative requirement is below 4% by either this next year or the year after that.
So, Chief, when we end the county EMS and ambulance services, we'll have 3 dispatch centers, is that right?
Right now, I believe, and again, Gary, you can correct me, being part of the discussions more than I have been, I believe nobody has really committed that they're not going to have a dispatch center. So Clearfield has one, Layton has one, Davis County Sheriff's Office has one, and we have one.
So Davis County will continue, I guess,
And they can continue as long as it makes sense to them. So for
Do you know when they're
us,
gonna-
we're
when-
almost, we're already consolidated, if you will. We're dispatching from Centerville South, including the fire district. Each entity is gonna have to decide whether the costs of maintaining a dispatch center is worthwhile for them based upon the population that they serve and the number of cities that they serve, and that could grow or reduce.
yeah. Hey, Gary, do we have an idea when when the county will stop providing EMS services and ambulance services?
Yeah, I believe that that there's going to be a phase-in period beginning this August, and it will be July 1st of next year when everybody will, each area will provide its own EMS and paramedic service.
Right. Is that the same period of time they're talking about perhaps only having maybe 3 call centers, or no?
They're no longer talking about,
They've changed that?
yeah, they're no longer
Okay.
talking about reducing the number of call centers,
Okay.
just to go.
But they'll all
to
be on
one
the same.
virtual.
That's one thing that'll be important.
Correct. So part of the benefit of us going to this is, and everybody being on the same system, and there will be a hosted server, so we won't host the server.
Okay.
We can all look up each other's information and reports. So if our detectives are working a case on somebody, they can look their name up and see, oh, they've had dealings with them in Layton, or technically, because the jail is going to be involved as well, as you'll be able to see what their jail involvement is. Are they in jail right now? Information that you collect while you're in the jail, all of that sort of stuff is much more central, and you're able to share much more easy.
Well, if there are no more questions, I would look for a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to move that we approve the purchase of Motorola Flex software in the amount of $367.39.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Francisco.
Thank you. This is a combination of a Class C retail beer license as well as a liquor license for a bar located at 980 North 5th West, known as the 5th. They had an issue with paperwork, in essence, which ended up being from the Utah DABC, which they revoked their license probably 30 days ago, something like that. So they had to, in essence, from the city, start from scratch with this local consent. Nothing will change from what we know. There's nothing that we found that would prohibit the city from reissuing both of these licenses. And because of that, we recommend that you approve the requested application.
I'd look for a motion.
So
Question?
there hasn't been any alcohol served during this time at all?
Not since April 27th.
So have you been open?
No.
Wow.
I've got a lot of employees and a lot of vendors and a lot of people that rely on us, so.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mayor, I move that we approve the Class C retail beer and liquor license for the Fifth LLC at 980 North and 500 West.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
One question.
Please.
Is this just our part of this, or does this grant a license to them?
This is just our part. They still have to be approved by the Utah DABC.
And is there a license available?
We don't know yet. We're going to see them tomorrow once we get the consent forms, the only thing we're waiting on.
Well, as someone who's never imbibed, it may sound strange, but I hope you're successful. Thank you.
Okay.
Good luck.
Just a
So
point
all
of
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I was just gonna, for a point of information for Councilman Higginson, DABC meets monthly. Their meeting for May was actually earlier today. So it would probably be at the next June meeting that the commission, if they had an available license, which is an if, would be able to consider.
Yeah.
But the local consent is part of that package they have to have ready.
We've had a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That motion passes. Thank you. Mr. Allen
Good luck.
Johnson.
Yes, Mayor and Council, it's great to be here tonight to bring a couple items here before you. I will say, as Councilman Higginson says, the Power Commission did meet, and we did go through all these. And all of these do have Power Commission recommendation to be brought positive with it. So the first one I have is the 3100 South rebuild, and this would be our, what we call our feeder 675. This is the 3100 South, or the Valverde Road, that we're looking to replace the conductor, which will allow us to tie a backup from our substation on 1800 South to the substation up on San Simeon Way. If we was to have a problem right now in the middle of the summer, we would not be able to back that substation up completely without having outages or a extreme amount of work. But by doing this feeder, which we've been working on for the last year and a half, we will be able to tie that back together. So that's really the main purpose of what we're doing. Not to mention it, again, brings it up newer and it's better, but it'll be more stiff, as if you want to call it. We've been working and got underground conduits to tie it in. And this component we're talking about tonight is just the labor to install the poles and the conductor. One of this thing does have 7 steel poles, and the steel poles are self-supporting poles, and we bought the poles, but these include the foundations. They have to dig down 25 feet or so, 5 feet wide, so they're decent-sized holes. Concrete is the
Will you
biggest
give
thing.
those dimensions again, just for people who weren't listening closely?
But they're approximately 25 feet deep and 5 feet in circumference.
Picture that hole.
That's a,
Now ask Alan why they don't cave in.
They fill it, as they come back, they put a water gel mixture in there, which holds the surface, so they go down, and they fill it up to hold it stable. And then when they come back and they put the rebar cages and everything, and they actually put the pumper truck, and they call it treaming, pump it in, and then they pump the gel out as the concrete comes back to fill it, so there isn't any void. So it's quite a process. Again,
I thought that was cool and you'd
It's
want to
cool.
know.
Yeah.
One of the things that you'll see on here is that we had 4 bids, and we were looking at the low bid, but they're all higher than what we'd anticipated. We had actually, looking at, thought we could do this for about $450,000. You'll see the low bid is $616,243. How we propose to cover that is part of it. It'll be one item I'll be talking about tonight that we'd like to buy out of this year's budget so we can use that capital money. And we've got another capital item we've identified so we can stay within our budget moving into next year. So we're not sitting here 30 days before we even approve it and I'm not already going over. So I'll just say that's why we're looking at a $600,000 project with $450 budgeted. So it would be the staff and Power Commission recommendation that we approve the low bid from Black & McDonald for $616,243. This work would be commenced in September, so this would be in next year's budget that we're talking.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? If not, I'd look for a motion.
Happy to make a motion that we approve the bid from Black & McDonald for $616,243 for the rebuild of 3100 South.
Second?
Thank you. In a second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thanks, Alan. You're on the deck for 4 more, I think.
All righty, the next one I got is the approval backyard pole installation machine. This is an item that we did have identified in next year's budget. This was part of the equipment that we was looking for the 3 additional crew members we did to bring our maintenance up and capital costs up a little, our projects up. We identified in last year's budgets, we were starting to look at it. We found out the company SDP Manufacturing actually they did have 2, but they have a piece of equipment. It was in stock. It was its last year's model, so they were willing to reduce it by $14,000 if we were to buy it. Not being sure that it would still be here 30 days from now, we're looking for approval to buy it out of this year's budget, which would give us a $14,000 savings over what they were selling them for. But the other thing that it would do is if they do sell this unit and we have to go into a new one, pricing with steel would be more, and it would be a 6-month delivery. So basically, we got this $14,000 off of the current price plus 6 months into it sooner. So, and we will be bringing out this year's budget. We do have The 200,000 still left in our capital budget, so we will not be opening our budget to buy it. We do have the room in our capital project this year, so it would be the Power Commission staff's recommendation that we purchase this backyard machine from SDP Manufacturing for $195,320.25.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Not, I'd look for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item 10, please.
Okay, the next one I have is to, again, this is next year's budget. We're looking to purchase 2 pickups, 2 550 Ford vehicles, cab and chassis. One would be the club cab or the double cab that the crews would be using on the day-to-day basis. The other one would be a single cab that they would be using for a dump bed. These 2 vehicles, and you'll see there'll be a service body and bed we'll talk about in a second. We did go out to bid both with our Performance Ford and Larry H. Miller, which is the state bid. In Larry H. Miller, when they got in there and got identifying the bids, there was a difference and realized that they had made a mistake and asked to pull their bid out. So we are looking to take the last low bid, I guess, or the last one from Performance Ford for these 2 budgeted items for a total of $101,414.80. In next year's budget, we had identified $173,000. These 2 trucks, as well as the 2 beds that we'll be talking about, would be $160,240. So we are under what our budget amount would be for these 3 items here. And that would come out of our capital account for next year's budget. And the delivery on these are going to be, hopefully by buying them now, we can get them done before July of next year.
Wow. Any questions?
Just to clarify, Alan, did I hear you correctly when you said that Larry H. Miller pulled their?
Yes, like when we got in there and they got realizing they had made a mistake after we had the bid opening and they wanted to raise it up. I mean, basically, in a bid opening, we could either honor their bid, or if they didn't want, they could pull it out. And this is, we need to pull it out. We can't sell to you for that. So.
Okay. Now, if there are no other questions, I'll look for a motion.
Motion to approve the purchase of 2 cabs and chassis from Performance Ford for the amount of $101,414.80.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You're up again.
All right, the next one is for the double cab truck that we just talked about. This would be the service body that the crews would be used to carry their tools and to get out to the job on a day-to-day basis. We went out and we're looking at the state bid on this, and we went to Mountain States Industrial Supply, which has Dakota beds, which is their state bid. We have several of the Dakota beds which work great, and they work for what our needs are. This pricing, again, because of the steel tariffs, state bid, they will hold it and they'll deliver it for this price. Had we gone out to bid, they would said there could be a $5,000 and $6,000 additional steel adders. We all see what steel is doing at this point. So it would be this Power Commission staff's recommendation. We approve the state bid for Mountain States Industrial Service for the Dakota body for $41,573.
Thanks again, Alan. Any discussion or questions for him? Yeah, look for a motion.
Move to approve as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Alan. And this might be your last one, Alan.
Yes, my last one, I'm
Okay.
sorry for
No,
taking up
we
some.
like you. We like you.
This would be the dump bed for the second truck that we purchased. And again, we did go back out to Semi-Service, which has the state bid for this dump bed to make a small dump bed. And this truck would be used to haul road base out, poles, tree limbs, or miscellaneous stuff to support the crew as we're working our way through. We currently have one. This would give us 2 in our fleet. So it'd be the Power Commission staff's recommendation that we take the state bid from Semi-Service for a dump bed for $17,251.67.
Any questions for Alan? If not, I'll look for a motion again.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we approve the purchase of the dump truck body from Semi-Service Inc. in the amount of $17,252.
Perfect.
Second.
Thank you. In a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you,
appreciate that.
Alan.
Thank
That
you very
was-
much.
Hey, you got a lot done tonight.
You know, in a hurry, appreciate that.
Well
Thank
done.
you very much.
Well done.
Thank you.
And Lloyd, your item.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight I have for your consideration a combination of two items to be approved, both relating to Renaissance Town Center. If you remember back 364 days ago, the council gave final plat approval to the Renaissance Town Center Phase 3 Plat 1. Now, there's a mouthful for you. But since that time, you have had a few discussions about some changes to this development. Well, our city code requires that the final plat be recorded at the office of the county recorder within 1 year of final approval. And unfortunately, Mr. Broadhead's not quite going to make that deadline because of the changes that have been made to his project. So he's requesting an extension for 1 year of his final approval for that project. Now, related to that, the council has also given a final site plan approval to Mr. Knowlton's project, which is one of the lots in this development. So my esteemed colleague, Mr. Astorga, and I thought it would be good to combine these up and get an extension for that final site plan approval. No changes to the site plan, only some minor changes to the subdivision plat itself. The original plat showed a couple of parcels of additional land. Those have been removed from the plat, and the plat basically contains the two lots that'll be developed in the immediate future. Now, in my memo, I mentioned no significant impacts. I would just maybe amend that to say that we hope the significant impact is that we receive some building permits ASAP. If you have any questions, either Francisco or myself would be happy to answer them.
And this is, if I could,
Please.
this is the modification that we made recently in which folks were assured that each of these parcels, as they're developed, will have to meet a parking requirement or have its own parking plan. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Not, I look for a motion.
Mayor, I'll be happy to make a motion that we grant extension of the final approval of the Renaissance Town Center Phase 3 Plat 1 and the final site plan approval for lot 16.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Chris. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That works. So we will go back to you, Tyson.
Thank you, Mayor. So I did get a chance to run those numbers that Councilwoman Bradshaw requested. So to get Bountiful City to the exact same tax rate and dollar amount of tax for 2022, it would be a 9.9% increase. So that would be $255,000. That would get us equal with what Woods Cross charged for their 2020 calendar year. So we don't know, obviously, if they're going to increase their tax rates yet. So this was what they charged last year. So to be the average of Davis County cities, we would need to increase at 74.2%. Whoop, that's a little.
Wow, that's a good one. That's a fun
Yeah, we don't want to go that far. There we go. So that, at 74.2 is 1.9 million to get us to the average Davis County city. I ran the numbers for what it would take to get us to the lowest Salt Lake County city, which would be 14.6, and that would get us to the same rate as Taylorsville in 2020, and that'd be 376,000. I also ran the numbers on the average Salt Lake County city, and that is 128.3% increase, so 3.3 million. So those are the numbers. Happy to throw them back in or adjust however you like to see them. And again, happy to plug and play and run scenarios.
Tyson, in our last meeting, you said that our purchasing power has gone from $1 the last time we raised taxes to 80-something cents on that dollar now?
Yeah.
Do you remember the number?
So we've lost 800 and, I better not. I'm just going to go right to the presentation just so I don't misrepresent. If the internet will let me. There we go. There it is. So we've lost $885,314 in buying power over the last 20 years. And one thing to note is we're not trying to recoup that buying power at this point, because Bountiful City's we've had good years of sales tax. We've had the light and power transfer that's kept us afloat. So we've been able to keep up with this loss of buying power with our property tax. Now what we're trying to do is reverse the trend. That we're now, our service level is up here and our revenue stream is down here. That's what we're trying to reverse now with the 815,000 figure, I should mention. So I do have both last presentation and this one queued up, so if you need to refer back to anything, let me know.
Would you mind, Tyson, pardon me for the redundancy, but would you mind doing those numbers again, the Woods Cross and the county average?
Sure. So Woods Cross would be 9.9% increase.
I'll write them down this time.
So 9.9% increase in 2022, and that'd be 255,000. And then Davis County would be 74.2%, and that'd be 1,915,000.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So Tyson, what is that in dollars?
1,915,000. And just to give you perspective, right here, we're listing what we estimate we're going to collect in fiscal 2021. So we're estimating we're going to get 2.518 million for 2021. So, 1.9 million increase would be very substantial for us.
I liked Richard's breakdown so that it wasn't quite as abrupt of an increase right up front. Just more of a gradual. And I'm wondering, even somewhat lower, like, 12% each year or something like that. I'm wondering what that looks like.
And are you thinking 1% increases just for inflation, or 2%?
Two.
Okay.
Is that your original recommendation, 2%?
2%, and that number really comes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics has averaged out over the past 20 years 2% inflation. So that's where that 2% recommendation came from.
So speaking of inflation, according to your analysis, you think the 2% would it run parallel with future inflation costs, or would they eventually intersect? Or is this something we're just going to have to continually reevaluate as we go?
Yep. It's an estimate, and luckily we have years to get to that point. If we do make the initial jump all in 2022, and we do increase it, full 1,815,000, then we can look at each year's inflation and say, well, based off of the trends that we're seeing in the markets, maybe this is more accurate, basing it off of the past 10 years rather than the past 20. We can play around with that. The main idea is just to keep us current and make it a regular increase rather than once every 20 years.
Can I ask a different scenario? So on your spreadsheet about what different types of entities bringing in sales tax, we had our average grocery store bringing in 255,000. So back on your magic spreadsheet, if we were to say do a 12% increase, but then the next year with our new Cal Ranch store and potentially any other grocery stores that might choose to locate in Bountiful, if we were to plug in 255 in year 2023, where it's a $1 increase, I'm faking.
Take the 12 out.
Yeah, take the 12 out, but I'm hoping that your spreadsheet will allow me to fake that much came in sales tax essentially.
Oh, okay.
And so you would do it every other year? Well, and then I'm just curious, what happens if you take the next 12 out? That makes sense what I was asking, Tyson.
Yes. And based off of the model that I created, this is only going off of property tax dollars. And so what we can do is we can just look at the graph and say we'd be $255,000 more. Does that make sense? So in 2022, if we did a 12%, then 2023, we increase it by 255,000. You can see we're still far below where we want to be. Far below.
But you took the 255,000 out.
I did.
What am I missing?
So this is only considering property tax.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
But
So
would
what it's doing is it's basically saying that this model is built on a 3% sales tax inflation. So it's increasing 3% every year. And that's based off of the past 20 years of history. So if we want to tweak sales tax, we'll actually have to go back and tweak that 3% figure as well.
Would this number change if we, going to Kate's scenario of including like Cal Ranch and other potential stores? Would it change if it was every other, like if we did 12% in 2022, nothing in 2023, and then 12% again in 2024? And then maybe nothing in 2025, and then again in 2026? I'm still shy.
Yeah. And so one thing to remember about property tax is when we raise property taxes, we get that incremental raise every year. So if we raise in fiscal 2022, $815,000, we get that same $815,000 every subsequent year. So every year we delay a property tax increase, we're that much less that we could have collected all along.
The sooner we raise it.
So that's why under the $815,000 scenario, we only have to do 2% increases thereafter because we're already collecting that full $815 annually, and it's every year unless we reduce our property tax rate.
And if we did that 815 right up front, then where would we fall compared to the other cities?
So that so if we,
I'm sorry, I'm sure.
no, you're just fine. So that puts us at in 2022 $230. So $230 would put us right in between Centerville and Sunset as the fourth lowest.
This also assumes that they don't.
It's kind of a conundrum of not wanting to be too, like wanting to be gradual about it, but also wanting to,
Could you turn on your microphone, Kendall?
sorry.
Thanks.
Wanting to be gradual, but then conversely wanting to, because if we delay, the more we delay it, the more we lose, really. So we don't capture it as much.
Well, we don't know what's going to happen to those cities.
Correct.
Those cities
Yeah.
very likely will be doing.
I do know that
Increase in
Centerville
the
City is
rates.
considering a property tax increase, and obviously the rec district is considering that with a passing of a bond. So yes, that's always a consideration as well. Is what's the overall property tax bill happening to the residents? But one thing we do know for sure is that in order to correct the trend, that 815 is what we're looking at. And whether that's collected all in 1 year, over multiple years, that's kind of the roadmap we're trying to feel out.
Can I argue against my idea for just a second?
Of course.
So I'm not really arguing against it, but the biggest risk to taking this incrementally is that this group of folks up on the dais is going to change. And also, some of us might get weak knees. And the punishment we take with our first 15% increase might inspire us to not take another 15% increase. So we kind of have to have a pretty firm resolve that if we're going to take this incrementally, we're in it for the long haul to fix the problem, and not just let's do it incrementally this year so that I don't have to face my neighbor with a 31%, and then maybe down the road we can do it again. So I'm not saying that you'll get weak knees. I've been known to get weak knees. We've got to be careful to have firm resolve.
It seems like to me, council, that you've looked at just about every possibility, and that Tyson, who knows these things, probably has the best scenario. And if he has the best scenario, I would recommend that that's what you agree to and go forward.
Yeah. So Tyson, put it up again.
Yes, let's put it up. Thank you for your kind words. I do appreciate it. I do want to say that I am not in your position, and I live in Bountiful City, and I understand some of the pressures from residents and and the discussions that happen, but I look at things from a very, black and white picture. And so I totally understand your concerns about a large increase and doing it all at once. And so I totally understand that. And I want you to know that as management, we fully support you in your decisions. We want to present the best information we can to help you make those decisions. But again, if you feel we should go another route, we will be behind you.
Can we see, sorry, I want to see one more scenario. Because doing a 31.58% increase, while that would be painful, I think we will still face a lot of scrutiny for then continuing to do 2. So I'm curious what it takes to put us just over the reserve line, and then allow us to only adjust every few years.
Something like that?
I'm thinking, when I listen to my friends at the taxpayers, they tell me they like to see every 5-ish years, they think cities should readjust for inflation. So I want to know what it takes to rip the Band-Aid off in 2022 and not readjust for 5 years.
So that would put us into fiscal 2027, increasing
You
it.
can make the 815 bigger is what I'm telling you.
Oh, I see. So maybe 900,000, something like that? So that gets us still just slightly below it. If we did 950, that puts us right above it. Well, a little bit excess, but.
No, but I think that accomplishes what I was wondering, is what it would take to raise it and then be able to leave it for a period of time and live within our means for a period of time.
Yeah.
Hey, Tyson, what was the last time that we raised these property taxes? It wasn't that long ago.
Fiscal year 2019.
2019, how much did we raise that?
It was 300,000. We did 75,000 for recouping sales tax that was redistributed to the homeless shelters, cities that have homeless shelters within their boundaries, and then 225,000 for 2 full-time police officers.
Yeah. Well, my recollection of that is we had very little feedback on that one that was negative.
I think the difference, I remember not being on the council at that point, and I think I quizzed you too, because you were up that cycle about this issue. And what dissuaded me at the time as a resident from deciding to come to that public comment was, one, that the legislature had taken money from the city, and 2, that it was for public safety, which I viewed personally as a very critical core function of city government. The difference, as one of the residents who attended today pointed out to me, is we have spent down our funds on things that I personally think the residents really like and enjoy, predominantly, mostly outdoor rec, but they are not as bulletproof as being able to, 1, blame the legislature, or 2, public safety.
And if I may, Mayor and members of the council, the Taxpayers Association views things from a very different standpoint. The way they look at it is, we want, and I've actually heard them tell us this, we want you to go 20 years without raising property taxes. So they look at things and say, we want to give taxpayers the ultimate bang for their buck. And so they're trying to prolong it as long as possible. And I get their understanding of saying, you know, maybe every 5 years raise those. The concern I do have with that is, again, going back to consistency of city council members, and also the ability to make that happen every 5 years. So as we've seen in Bountiful, we've done it twice in the past 22 fiscal years. And when it's not a regular occurrence, it creates more of an uproar in residents. And having talked to many finance directors from other cities that annually increase their property taxes, they rarely get people to come out and discuss it. Now, I'm not saying that wouldn't happen in Bountiful, and I'm not saying that maybe every 5 years isn't a bad option, but just some concerns to think about is that consistency and helping residents become more comfortable with the process.
Just some food for thought. When we discussed this, I think 2 years ago, and we were looking at either maintaining the property tax rate, if you recall, or doing an inflationary adjustment. Maintaining the rate would have been about an 11% increase, if I remember right. The reason I remember that is because we had a resident come and speak at the public hearing against it, who mentioned that inflation was only 2% and we were looking at doing an 11% increase, ignoring the fact that, you know, we had gone many years before without doing any kind of inflationary adjustment. The feedback that we have received from city managers as well is the same, that the more frequently you do it, the less frustration and the easier it is to explain. So I think our overall recommendation, however we get there, is that we get back to the 115 as quickly as possible, and then that we try and do property tax increases every 1 or 2 years. That seems to be the best way to maintain our buying power and to walk that tightrope of resident concern. So. One other point that I might make too, that we haven't touched on with you all for a long time, but it's worth noting that as our property rate goes down, it not only affects our general fund, that also decreases the amount of money that we receive in our RDA because it works off the same property tax rate, and it affects our motor vehicle tax distribution. It also gets decreased because it's distributed based upon what percentage we are of the total. So if others increase and we don't, they get a bigger and bigger share. And that's been happening that's just the way the tax gets distributed. So there are more impacts than just what we're talking about here by not maintaining our rate, for what it's worth. I think there are a lot of good arguments, but at the end of the day, we have no illusions. We know you're going to get criticized, and I don't think it matters if it's 10% or 90%. You're going to get criticized.
Yeah.
Right.
And the only solution to that really is to make your strong decision based on the best available information, and stick to your guns and do it on a regular basis.
Thanks for that background. And I always liked additional background. Was this scenario presented 2 years ago? Or something along these lines, setting the standard for?
When we were deciding whether to maintain the rate or not, that Gary was referring to?
Just when we did the property increase to recoup those costs of the money that was taken from the legislature and the additional police officers, was this a scenario that was presented? And I'm just wondering if it was rejected then and why. But if it wasn't, then
Yeah,
it
back
doesn't
when
matter.
in fiscal 19, we didn't actually do any type of analysis in front of the council to say on top of adding 2 police officers and recouping our $75,000 for the homeless shelters, we probably should increase for this. We didn't do any type of this type of projections or analysis.
And we were probably in the middle of some pretty big projects, so we didn't know what the deficit would be.
And we just we were focused on keeping ourselves at least even and not hurting ourselves by increasing staffing and then losing sales tax. So our main focus then was, all right, let's keep our ground right where we're at. But we do, I mean, we've been concerned about this for a while. It's just now we know that it's time.
You know, going back to Tyson's recommendation, I like that. Would you bring that up again, Tyson, for us?
I will.
What is the average, do you know the average homeowner, what the increase would be for this
Yeah,
recommendation?
so over here, so we would have, in 2022, that would increase on the average home, which crazy enough is $402,000 based off of the county assessor's office. That would be $230 on that average home, and so that would increase it by $55 per year. So that, just the $815,000 would be the $55 increase, and then the 2% would be $5 every year. So if you wanted to look at that on a monthly basis, the $815,000 increase in 2022 would be $4.59 per month, and then the 2% would be, you know, cents. We're talking 38 cents, 39 cents, 40, 41.
And what would be the,
So, council, I would advise you to just agree with the expert here, and it is Tyson, to do his scenario, which we've looked at many of them, and go with staff and go forward. I would suggest you go forward.
just one more question.
Please.
If it was the 15%,
Yeah.
15, over the next 3 years, I was just wanted to see what that would look like for the average home.
Yep.
I really like your suggestion, Tyson, because I think it helps us recoup faster, and then every year we're already doing better. But this just feels a little more gentle for a change, to ease our residents into a change.
So Tyson, remind us, sorry, Mayor, I think
No,
we're
go ahead.
getting to the same point.
Good.
Remind
Do
us
it.
of the time frame. I think we decided do we need a decision tonight?
That would be preferable, not absolutely necessary. We could hold off until June 8th and then spend a little more time if we need it on discussing scenarios or whatever research you might need. But June 8th would kind of be our drop dead, because then we need time to get to alert Davis County that we're looking at a property tax increase, gets our hearings scheduled with Davis County, and then also get it ready for the June 22nd adoption of the budget. So we would, I think June 8th would be kind of our drop dead.
Richard, what's your preference for the 815,000 and 2% thereafter?
I think that we bite the bullet this year and get ourselves on track, and then do like Kate said, go a couple of years, 3 or 4 years, reassess, see what we need to do. I know there are attractive things to the ease into it approach, but I just worry that the votes go away when the pressure mounts, and we need to follow through on our responsibility that we've made, or our commitment that we've made to fund the things that we've bought that are fun.
So are you saying, Richard, to the 815,000 and then 2% every year for the next few years, and then look at it again, and you're talking about something else?
I say we do the big push. What was it, 925,000?
Yep, 950, I believe it was.
I think 950 pushed us over, and 900 was short.
Okay.
So, anyway, that's my opinion. I think while we are here, while we know what we've done to burden the city with additional cost, while we're here in full knowledge of the buying power we've lost, let's do the right thing and just get it done.
Millie?
And when I say the right thing, I mean,
Sorry.
in my opinion. I'm sorry.
Oh, I got you. Millie?
I think I agree with this scenario.
And Kendall?
I would prefer the other just easing into it, but I can understand why, I mean, this is smart. I can understand why this is smart, so.
Chris?
Well, I like the 850 and the 222.
And we know Kate's, so that was her opinion, so.
Does she have a comment?
I don't love this plan, but I think it does achieve what is fiscally responsible and helps us pick battles.
Stupid. Okay. So you have,
I guess my one question with this plan, Tyson, do you have any big, huge reservations other than what we've discussed, that you feel like it's better in small increments?
Yeah,
But do you have any huge reservations? from a
nothing huge,
financial
no.
standpoint?
I think it is wise to bite the bullet, I really do. It's the Band-Aid approach, you know, let's just take the pain at first. And as long as we educate as best we can, you can never educate people who are unwilling to be educated, but as long as we try our best, we do open houses, we help with work sessions, we get the information out there on why we need such a large increase. I think we can present the right message, and getting it in fiscal year 2022, I think, is the right choice. You know, obviously, I'm more of the persuasion. Let's keep ourselves at that level, because you know we'll be coming back again in 5 years and saying, all right, now we have to increase it 15% rather than incremental 2%, and it's always harder to do 15 to 20% increases than a 2%. But again, that's just my preference. But big reservations, no. We're solving the big issue, which we know is reversing that negative financial trend. When we solve that issue, I'm good. And down the road we can revisit. So I'm not overly concerned about this method. Gary, thoughts there?
I think the key to our financial stability is regular increases on an ongoing basis. If this means that we're going to be afraid in 5 years to do a tax increase, then I think it's the wrong decision. But who knows? It may be largely different people. I think you're going to continue to hear the same thing from Tyson and me over the years, which is and I think Chris has shared this too, that the best thing to do is small, regular increases every couple of years. But I don't have any reservations with this. I appreciate the council's willingness to recognize what you know Tyson and Galen and I have spent a long time trying to illustrate as what we see are concerns. And as Tyson said, we're 100% behind you, and provide any data and support that we can to explain to folks why we're doing what we're doing.
yeah. Okay. We'll go forward.
I think
I think
three
we are.
three members felt good with this, so
We're putting the
I think
burden
that's
on the
the
next
direction
group of
we needed.
city
So
council.
So just so we're clear, what that would mean, unless you give us different direction on the 8th, and it won't be on the agenda, would be this would be the tax increase that we would show, and this is the tax increase that would go out on the truth in taxation bills. You're not committed to approving this rate until August, so you could decrease it or increase it, but.
Guarantee the 2% increase.
Jason, is it possible to have your fancy spreadsheet? Because I think it would be
happy to send this out. Yeah.
Somebody else.
fun to continue to play
I
with
don't
it.
want to have this available.
You do not?
I'd waste too much time on it. This does put us over 36% for this year's tax increase.
Yeah.
That's hefty.
Yeah, do you want to reconsider? Do you want to think about
Where would this put us in our cities?
815?
So that would be, so we're at $239 per the residential home. So that would still put us smack dab in between Centerville and Sunset.
And
So as fourth lowest. It's a testament to just how infrequent and low our taxes really are. Yep.
Last question then.
Okay.
Very happy to put this on, a work session for a few minutes on the 8th, just to confirm direction if you want us to. Otherwise, we'll just move ahead.
Any disposition for that?
I'm always happy to talk or listen. Thoughts?
Millie?
Well, I'm just thinking, the mayor whispered in my ear that this is putting on future council. This is putting the burden on the backs of the future council.
It is.
But I feel, and I don't quite understand that reasoning, and I want to make an informed decision and be responsible to our residents. But I also, can you expound on that a little bit? Is there something I'm missing?
I don't think so. I think it's plain as day. I just think it's, if you do a huge number right now and you don't do anything for 5 or 6 years, it's not going to be a 2% increase.
But we're taking
It's
the
going
fall
to-
right now.
Yeah, we're taking the fall now, but by having a little less of a fall and doing 2%, what you're doing is you're putting, again, the burden on whoever's here on the city council in 6 or 7 years when they have to do perhaps the same thing that we're doing right now rather than incremental. And I think that's exactly what Tyson has been trying to explain for the last 2 hours, hour before, is that we're going to end up putting the burden heavy on the backs of future city councilmen.
Hogwash.
They'll revisit every year. They'll revisit every year and decide every year what they'll do.
Tyson, can you make your spreadsheet add fiscal year 2027?
Yeah.
Was that super hard to do?
Let me.
You kidding? He's so excited to be able to do this right now.
I mean, he built this ship, we might as well fly it. 'Cause here's my thought in response is I'm looking at his model as it stops in fiscal year 2026, we start to trend above the line. And so I'm curious if that happens in fiscal year 2027, 2028, because then I would say that a future council in those years has an interesting discussion they get to have about whether they should decrease or whether government has grown or inflation has grown up greater than 2 or 3%. So I think we can answer that question if I can just keep talking long enough for Tyson to copy and paste more
I do
columns
appreciate that.
into this spreadsheet.
This is amazing.
Yeah. We're so lucky that we have Tyson who loves.
A nerdy guy like this, yeah.
Highlight a cell and copy it.
I know how to sum add. That's about it.
I'm just double checking,
That's,
doing my reviews to make sure that all of my formulas did flow forward.
Like watching Picasso paint.
Nope.
Do you write in all caps?
That remains flat.
I guess, Mayor, since we're waiting, if I may just, I'm worried that if we don't bite the bullet now, some people may we may get off track because a future council may or may not shy away from the 2% increases. And if everyone committed, yes, for the next 5 years, this is what we're going to do, then that would be wonderful. But it's going to change. There's going to be ebb and flow. And so I think right now, for us to make the hard decision it will serve the future council, and it will most importantly serve the residents well.
Yeah,
Although it's a hard, I completely acknowledge that it's a hard pill to swallow.
I just disagree. And one of the reasons that I disagree too is that, I mean, Tyson and Gary are saying too, and Tyson's made it clear that the fellow people that, in other cities that have his same responsibilities, this has worked well over time best, because we don't know. We don't know what the economy's going to be. We don't know. There's just a lot of things we don't know. So you make the best choices.
Yeah, and because we
And
don't
the best
know.
The best choices. So, I mean, it's a big bullet. I don't know that the resident's going to care whether it's 37% or 30%. When it gets high, it's high. I don't think that makes a big difference. It doesn't, I mean, it's going to be high regardless. It's going to be an increase of taxes of $55 a year, or it's going to be $60, $70, or it might be $40, but it's going to be an increase.
We'll be evaluating this every year. We'll be looking at this every year. And if we need to do 2%, we'll definitely do 2%. We'll be coming back every year.
That's what I say. You just have to decide whether you want this if you want to make a decision now, or if you want to wait until, and make a decision on the 8th, a final decision. What do you want to do?
Okay, I think I'm ready.
Okay, you're ready to show us the trend? I'm so excited for this spreadsheet, Bill.
Okay, so through 2027, and let me just, okay, so it would still, so through 2027, it would still keep us above that minimum threshold. If we did, no increases from 2023 to 2027.
Or is it for that fiscal year 2028?
If you want to keep talking, yeah.
Well, I'm curious about where that trend line.
Yeah, where does the trend line
Where does it end?
turn down?
Yep.
Or does
Yep.
it?
Well, and one thing with projections, the further out you go, the less likely you're going to be accurate. So the way this model is built is it's built on averages. So I took, the past average 14 fiscal years of capital project expenditures. If we decide to go purchase more land or build another building and it costs us, 13, 14 million, whatever it might be, that throws off all of these projections. So again, has its flaws, has its benefits, but to keep going too much further, we run the risk of not really representing it well.
So it also doesn't, at what point do you feel like your model gets wobbly on sales tax increases as well?
Yeah, so
Do we start getting wobbly at the same point, like 2027 is the most secure, or do you feel like you get wobbly at like 2025?
well, and with 20 years of data at increasing 3% every year, on average, I got to clarify that, but I think our sales tax numbers are going to be fairly reasonable. It's just how much, we just don't know whether we're going to be increasing service level at any point in time in any of these fiscal years. So say we need another parks employee or another police officer, or any of those adjustments are not factored into this. And so we're just throwing out any service level increases in these assumptions. But so the sales tax, I feel, is probably fairly accurate through this point in time. So does that answer the question?
Oh, that helps. I'm
Okay.
just so excited for Cal Ranch and any other retailers.
And that's, to many of the points that have been made, this is an ongoing annual process. We, as part of the budgeting process, we go through this type of an analysis and say, all right, where are we at with fund balance? And that's one of the main key indicators we're looking at is capital project fund balance and, general fund revenues. Where are we at in those areas? And we do look at those every single year. And so if we see something that really says, okay, we've got to correct, then we'll definitely come back to the council in that budget cycle and say, all right, what adjustments would we like to make? Here's what we recommend. So it's an iterative process. We continually look at it, but obviously more in depth in future years. And again, it's just the question of how well accustomed do we get the residents to property tax increases, and are we almost making them numb to not increasing it on a regular basis to the point where when we do try in 5 fiscal years, 6 fiscal years to raise property taxes 20%, 30%, is there another outrage? Are you getting personally attacked because of it? Those are the kind of things that concern me a little bit, but.
Could I make a comment? Our coats for kids has gone through the ceiling, and a lot of times it's because grandma and grandpa now have the kids. And so part of the problem is, as I see it, a bigger tank increase now is going to hit the grandmas and grandpas, the seniors. They're on fixed income, Social Security, and that. I would like to keep the tax as low as we could and make just gradual increases to protect those of us that are in the senior citizen level that are living on Social Security, fixed income. They go down to the supermarket, meat prices going up. I had a sweet little lady in our neighborhood. She couldn't fill her tank up because she didn't have enough money. It's a problem. It's a problem, and I'd like to see us to keep it as low as we possibly can. And I think small incremental increase is better than one big bite. That's my opinion.
Chris, what do you think we should start out at this year?
Well, I like the 850.
Oh, the 815 that Tyson recommended?
Yeah, the 815 that Tyson recommended. As I've looked at that, and again, I just look back at my own practice. When you're in your own business, you have to look at expenses, revenue, all of this stuff. And I have just found over the 50 years I've been practicing, if I make a small incremental fee adjustment each year, and sometimes it's only 25 cents, but I don't get the pushback. That I get if all of a sudden my accountant tells me, you really got to raise this price because all of a sudden the costs of your composites have gone through the roof. So you've got to make a big jump, which means I have to make a big jump in the restorations I do. But if I each year can slowly bring that up, I just don't have the pushback from the parents that, why have your price has gone up so? And being a pediatric dentist, I hear a lot of moms and dads tell me how much general dentistry has gone up, and they're not happy. And again, it's just because as I have the opportunity to give lectures to dentists around the country, I try to express to them small incremental adjustments is much better than one big one.
Well, Chris, I obviously related to the dental analogy. So thank you for that insight. Tyson, would you mind sharing with us, I can't remember, the difference in upfront cost to our residents between the 815 and 950?
Sure. So 815, we're sitting at $55 annual one-time increase, ongoing increase. So it'd be $55, and the 950 would be $64.
So it's $9, a $9 difference. So the $9 puts us on, an extra $9 puts us on track for the next 4 years at least, confidently.
Yeah, that would keep us above that minimum threshold.
I have a potential suggestion, because I would also like to understand the property, the circuit breaker property tax exemptions better, because I think that's relevant to Chris's point. It seems to me we're circling on, we've narrowed in on two ideas that are similar. And so perhaps the staff can help us, between now and the next work session meeting, narrow in and refine one of, those two ideas for further discussion. And we can individually continue to play with Tyson's fun spreadsheet without messing up his formulas.
Do you have visiting hours?
You're always welcome. Yeah.
And that would also give us time to also, I think, explore what the circuit breaker options are for those that are on fixed incomes.
Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Yes. I'd also like to say that
Good.
grooming residents to be happy with property taxes isn't necessarily my personal favorite philosophy. I think it should be painful and difficult to raise property taxes, and that it ought to be a fight, and you ought to have to look your neighbors in the eye and tell them, yeah, I'm raising your property taxes, deal with it.
Well, and remember, you're raising your own,
Absolutely.
you're raising your own too. Okay,
The
you
last
got it?
part was
Are you
just-
good with 8?
I think so.
Anything else?
Oh, I'm great.
If I could just ask one last request. So it sounds like everyone's comfortable with raising property taxes in 2022. We all on board with that?
Comfortable is too strong a word.
Think,
Yes.
Consult the. Yeah, understanding and
Yeah,
committed.
find the spreadsheet equivalent of the thesaurus for a different word of comfortable, but something.
Yes. Okay, that just gives us direction so that we know for sure that we can alert Davis County that we're going to be looking for a property tax increase in 2022, and that does help us. It truly does. So we'll be happy to come back on the 8th and provide a little more analysis, and I'll email out the spreadsheet to everyone. And again, if you'd rather come into my office and discuss all kinds of different scenarios or pros and cons, happy to make that time. So should we plan on just a few minutes in the June 8th
Yep.
meeting to?
Okay, you're good?
Yeah, we're good. Thank you.
This was
Great-
very helpful.
great
And
discussion.
this
Thank
was
you.
very helpful, Tyson, this page.
Okay, with that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn to a closed session.
So moved.
It's a roll call vote.
Oh, I was excited.
Start with Councilman Higginson.
Aye. I'd like to move to a
Don't we need a
closed session.
second on that motion?
Oh, yeah, sorry, we didn't get a second.
Right.
I thought Millie said.
Second.
Did we?
There was a second.
No, that was
Made the
she
motion.
made the motion.
Motion.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So then there's the second. So then we'll start with Councilmember Higginson again after the motion, or the second.
So Higginson?
Oh, sorry.
Aye.
Councilmember Barr,
Aye.
Councilmember Harris,
Aye.
Councilmember Simonson,
Aye.
Councilmember Bradshaw.
Aye.
The location of the meeting is conference room,
It's right after this. So-
correct? We going in there?
Oh,
Yes.
beautiful. I took